Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Crimes with Maggie May. I'm so excited you all are here, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of my latest episodes. So, my Epstein series has been on high demand right now, and I have had a lot of people asking me if I'm going to be continuing that series, and I have the answer. The answer is yes. Today we will be diving back into the Epstein series, and I'm so excited about that. We have so much new information that I can't wait to share with all of you. But first, a big thank you to our sponsor. So, as most of you know, if you watched my video from last week, I am sponsored by Debbie Energy. I also just got a new sponsor by Deutsche Foods, and I'm super excited about them. They are a gluten-free, plant-based cookie dough. I'm waiting for my package from them, but we are going to be talking about Debbie Energy because I finally got my products, and I'm so excited about that. My husband and I, we have been living off of Debbie Energy, as well as all of our employees that work for him. Such an amazing product. I'm usually super skeptical when it comes to like energy powders like this because for me, they've just never worked. And so I was really nervous about it. And I was like, well, we'll see how it works. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. When I tell you I drank an entire 16 ounces of this and then literally kicked everyone out of my house, turned on some Machine Gun Kelly and some Youngblood and deep cleaned my entire house. And I mean like deep cleaned my entire house. And then I made a TikTok, which was so funny. I made a TikTok and me talking, I was like, like you could tell that I was just on a complete high. And I never got the crash. I never got the jitters. I never got the shakes. I've had a lot of heart problems in my life. And so I never, like my heart, usually if I am drinking a lot of energy drinks, my heart like goes berserk and is like, I feel like it's going to like pound out of my chest. Never did. And so I'm super grateful to them. I even have some right here. I'm drinking the Blue Raz one, which I have with me also as well. And this kind of pissed me off, but my husband, I have an actual shaker cup from Debbie Energy, and it's in my husband's pickup, far away from here. So I'm super bummed about that. So I put it in his shaker cup, but the Blue Raz tastes like the bottom part of a bomb pop. So good. It's so good. So there is that for you guys. I also have a discount code with them, and it is CCW Maggie May. I will drop it at the bottom of the screen as well as in the description box of this episode. But with that being said, I'm going to take a quick drink and we are going to dive right into these Epstein files, because let me tell you about some of the stuff we're going to be talking about is wild. Okay? Oh, so good. Alrighty, so I have my little book in front of me that I write all of my notes down in, and we're going to be going through some notes because there's a couple quotes in here that I want to quote word for word so that it is exactly what the person said, and I don't want to get in trouble for misquoting somebody. So we're going to dive right into that, and I'm going to try not to move my microphone too much while I open this. So if I do, I'm sorry. I might move it a little bit, and then I'll move it back to where it needs to be. Get out of the way. Also, don't mind my kids in the background. My grandparents are here, and they're having a fit. Sorry. So we have a lot of really good news coming from the Epstein files. A lot of really big things happening with the Epstein files. Whoops. The first being Bill Clinton testified maybe 2 weeks ago. I can't quite remember. I took a week off of the Epstein file, so I would guess it was about 2 weeks ago. Amazing because one, they're actually starting to have people testify, which is a really great thing, and I think we need to do more of that. But also because the amount of backlash that Trump has gotten since being in office, and even before he was in office, even during his first term, he had a lot of backlash, but it was never this bad. And with Bill Clinton being one of the biggest Democrat presidents that the US has ever had, then we I think it's good to know that he completely exonerated him as far as any knowledge that he had of any of the Epstein files or anything that he was involved in and not involved in, which we all know is a crock of shit, right? We all know that he was lying. And then did anybody see the video of him when they were passing the pictures around and he was looking at all the old pictures and like the look on his face? If you weren't involved in the Epstein files and saw pictures and videos from the Epstein files, like, you would be completely disgusted, right? So for him to be sitting there looking at the pictures, like with this seductive look on his face, all like reminiscing through all of the shit that he had done with Jeffrey Epstein, is just wild to me. And it's clear as day. It's as blatant as it can be. Like, you can see how much he was enjoying looking at these pictures. It was just wild to me. But there's that. And then, of course, to kind of tie into the Trump thing one more time, I don't want to keep talking about it because it is a conversation that I feel like every left-wing media, anything, is having and talking about. And oh my gosh, we have a pedophile for a president. Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I saw pictures of Trump with Epstein, but I've also seen emails that say that Jeffrey Epstein and Trump hated each other and that Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. But however, I do see one of your guys' top presidents getting a massage from an underage girl, sitting in a pool with a bunch of underage girls, and to top it all off, they dressed Stephen Hawking in princess outfits and carried him around, and it is a full picture of Bill Clinton doing it. Yeah, let's talk about presidents being pedophiles. Let's do that. So there's that. But it just, the one more thing was a gal had, and I just want everybody to know, and I'm going to say two things before I say this. One, all victims should be believed until their statements are not credible anymore. I think that everybody's story is different, but I also think that because of who is involved with the circle of trafficking and pedophiles and cannibalism, that we have to take everything with a grain of salt, simply because this is a really good way to weed out a lot of really good people. And that's what they're going to do. So the first thing is, all victim statements should be believed until they're not credible anymore, which is what happened in a situation I'm about to talk about. And the second thing being, if you are falsely accusing someone of a sexual assault, or any assault for that matter, jail. Rape, abuse, anything. If you are falsely accusing somebody and your story gets discredited and it's blatant that you're lying, jail. Because that makes it to where victims are not believed. That gives the stigma that all women are lying. And we're not. Okay? I was sexually assaulted when I was in high school, and then a couple years ago I was sexually assaulted by somebody very close to me. And I didn't tell anybody about it because, one, I told one person, and the person that I told basically told me to keep my mouth shut if I wanted to live the life that I wanted to live at that time. And so I did, and I still didn't end up living the life that I wanted to. And now that person that I'm very close with that sexually assaulted me is constantly in my life still. And I did not take the actions that I should have a long time ago to protect myself from that person, which is my fault completely. But I knew I wouldn't be believed. And that person even told me, you can tell somebody about it, but they're not going to believe you. It's my word against yours. That was literally word for word what he said to me. So I get that, you know, a lot of victims are not believed. And I was sexually assaulted in high school. And I was also not in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. I was a drug addict. I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I knew that if I came forward about that abuse, nothing would happen because I couldn't even pass a drug test. So that stigma of not being believed is because women are falsely accusing people of a sexual assault that never happened. And that takes me to a girl that made a statement against Trump and Epstein and said that they had both raped her at 13 years old. She is now facing charges for slander and exploitation. Yeah, girlfriend, like that pretty much discredits you as a witness. And I, for one, Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't surprise me. Trump, have you seen the women have you seen that man's wife? Do we really need to accuse somebody who has a wife that looks like Melania of rape? I don't think so. And like I've said before, if he did it, he did it. Off with your head. I don't think he did. And until I'm proven otherwise, by a credible source, not a left-wing bullshit, not CNN, a actual news program with credible evidence, I don't believe it. And that's just how I am. But anyways, let's dive into it because we got a lot to talk about today. And I got a lot of shit to do today. So we're going to dive into the fact that they are finally searching the ranch in New Mexico. It's like an answered prayer, really it is, because there are so many files talking about the crimes that happened in New Mexico. I mean, it dates back all the way to the freaking documentary with the sisters that came forward, the farmer sisters that came forward and were taken to the freaking ranch. And now we're finally talking about it. And now we have investigators digging it up because there's a file in an email in the files that says that, and I want to make sure I say this right, so I'm going to look at my notes, but I remember partially of what it said. I have so much going on up here with all of this stuff that it's like, sometimes you just have to look. So there's an email between Jeffrey Epstein and, of course, a redacted name that talks about two girls being buried on the ranch after a sex fetish had gone wrong and they died. And Epstein told them, just bury him somewhere. Did you think that nobody was ever going to catch on? I'm just wondering. I'm just asking for a friend mostly, but mainly for me. Did you think that nobody would know? And who were these girls? Where were their families? There has to be something tying these girls to somebody. So it's just sad. It really is. And the more I look into it, which is why I had to take a week off last week and talk about something different, because this is real-time shit. This is real-time shit. And the case that I covered last week happened in the 80s. And I mean, I wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eye at that point. So it was a lot easier to talk about that because justice had been served. The victims were done. I mean, it was right. Everything was good. The only thing that pissed me off about that, and I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I'm kind of going off the rails here, but you died of cancer, bud. Ugh, that pisses me off. That's the only thing. But nonetheless, it was a lot easier to talk about that than it is to talk about this because this is real life shit happening before our very eyes. This is not a case that happened 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or even 40 years ago. This is a case that happened now. This is going on now. And this has been spanning for decades. And, you know, I saw this thing on TikTok the other day and it was this person asking, why? And I've asked myself the same question. I've asked other people the same question. Why is no one talking about it as far as celebrities, politicians? I mean, some politicians are talking about it, but some of them are just kind of like sweeping it under the rug. But you have not seen, there has not been one celebrity. Show me a celebrity. Please show me a celebrity that has actually been talking about the Epstein files. I have yet to find one. Yet to find one. Making a public statement, talking about bringing any of the accusers or any of the abusers, the co-conspirators, anybody to justice. I have not seen one celebrity talk about it. And you want to know why? You want to know why? Because it pays their bills not to. The same people paying for protesters to go all over and protest whatever theory they're protesting are the same people paying these celebrities to shut the fuck up about the files. Prove me wrong. You can't. And I will die on that hill. It's the same thing. And if they're not being paid to keep their silence, they've been paid before because they were involved. Either it's a hefty check with a lot of zeros or it's an NDA. Tell me I'm wrong. You can't. And that's just how I feel about it. On top of the brands that these people are promoting, has anybody seen, and I want to dive into this just a little bit, has anybody seen the Nike shoes that came out, I think it was a couple years ago, that had literal blood in them? No. No. And that's what it's in our music, it's in our movies, it's in our shows, it's in our brands, it's in our history books. Robert Maxwell. I mean, you can't get away from this no matter how hard you try. It's in our textbooks, it's in our freaking school pictures. I lived in a really small town when I grew up, and I still live in a pretty decently small town, but I was in a really small town. Like 30 kids were in my class. 30. You mean to tell me they had that much of a reach? Because we used Life Touch in the town that I grew up in. What the fuck? That's how much of a reach they had. On top of the fact that Jeffrey Epstein owned Justice and Claire's. What? And to top that whole situation off, Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender of a minor, had VIP passes to Disney. Nobody saw that a little fucking weird. Nobody was like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have this convicted sex offender, especially with minor charges, at an amusement park for children. But Ghislaine Maxwell also worked for Disney and was the freaking talent scout for children at Disney. On top of the fact that the Disney cruises recorded stops at Little St. James Island for snorkeling. And then there's just magically people lost at sea. Don't get me wrong, I'm a pretty gullible person. And I'm pretty naive. I was pretty naive. A lot of this stuff has wakened me up to a lot, but I'm a pretty naive person sometimes. I'm not this fucking naive. I can tell you that much. I am not this fucking naive. And that's just, it's crazy to me. Then I've been doing some more research because there is a lot of speculation and a lot of theories going around that Jeffrey Epstein is still alive. And I, for one, am one of those people. I will die on the hill that man is in Israel. I will die on the hill. Because, and I want to talk about it because there was a prison guard by the name of Tova Noel, and she was supposed to be watching Jeffrey Epstein's cell. And every 30 minutes they were supposed to be checking on him. Were they? Nope. And the reason for that being they were taking naps and online shopping. Great job. Great job. Great job. And I am going to tie back into the Zorro Ranch just a little bit. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I have a lot going on in my head. I'm thinking about a lot of things, but we're going to dive back into what I was talking about with Tova. But first, there was one more thing I did want to talk about the Zorro Ranch. So in the files, also going along with the sex fetish gone wrong and those two women being buried on the ranch, it also talked about people coming forward to New Mexico's representatives. And they said, and I'm going to read this quote for quote, so I am going to be looking at my notebook because it is a quote. And they said, "We have people coming forward saying they were drugged, had sex organs and sperm harvested from their bodies, and woke up around medical equipment not knowing where they were or what happened to them." And this is going to tie into the clones and things like that, because harvesting sex organs and sperm at a ranch in New Mexico that is now being investigated. Thank God for that. But that just goes to show the connections that they had, like the doctors and the dentists, the dentist pulling the teeth so they didn't bite. All of it is just like, as a doctor, and I worked in the healthcare field for 8 years. I was a CNA for a long time, and then I worked in the OR for a long time. And I worked close to a cardio surgeon that literally saved my life. I mean, he was great. But as doctors and any healthcare professional, dentist, I mean, something as small as a CNA, which sounds like I'm invalidating them as a person. I'm not. I've seen the shit. I've done the shit that CNAs have to do. Praise y'all. Y'all doing God's work right there, okay? I couldn't do it anymore. I got so burnt out of it. I did it for 5 or 6 years maybe. It's hard. It's a very hard job to do. But we all take oaths as healthcare workers that we're going to be healers and we are going to be caretakers of our patients, whether they're babies, fetuses, adults, geriatric patients. It doesn't matter. End of life care. We all took oaths to heal and to advocate for our patients, to do what needs to be done to keep our patients healthy and happy and alive. But you have doctors like this removing organs and harvesting sperm from drugged people for a check. And that's what all of this is stemming from, is money. All of this is stemming from money, and you will not change my mind. It's not about power. It's not about hanging out with your friends and being under the wrong influence and wrong place, wrong time, wrong person, whatever. This is all money focused, money driven. And you cannot convince me otherwise. This is about either being rich or getting rich. And if you're rich, you can go to the island and eat human flesh and it's normal. But if you're not, you're doing the things to get up there with those people. If you have no moral compass at all, that's exactly where you're at. But anyways, to dive back into Tova Noel. So guards were fired after admitting that they had falsified records tying to Jeffrey Epstein. And I mean, that for one just basically shows you everything you need to know. And like I said, they were supposed to be checking on Epstein every 30 minutes, but instead they were napping and online shopping. And 40 minutes before Epstein was found dead, Tova Noel Googled the latest on Jeffrey Epstein in jail. She, however, claims she did not do that, but it's easy to look at your history. I mean, it's not that hard. Anybody can do it. So that was basically discredited. Obviously, you looked him up. Why not just, say why you looked him up? You got busted. There was your chance to tell the truth and you chose not to. So there's that. And in a sworn statement, the FBI also, that's where she denied that she had Googled his name. And another file says that that her bank, Chase Bank, had flagged her account for suspicious activity because she had deposited $5,000 cash into her account. Now, if you know anything about banking or anything financial, then you know a $5,000 cash deposit really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, especially when it comes to suspicious activity in bank accounts. That just seems like a very minimal amount of money for a bank to flag it, in my opinion. Now, especially in today's society, like $5,000 is $5,000. Don't get me wrong, but it's really like in the grand scheme of things, and especially with costs of everything, like it's not that much. It's really not. And it depending on where you live, like that might cover a month's rent. I live on a pretty decent place, nobody needs to know where. And, we have a pasture, we have animals, we have, the whole thing. And we pay half of $5,000 for our rent each month. And that's just rent. That's not talking about electric. That's not talking about utilities. That's not talking about groceries, gas, car payments, phone payments, pickup payments. My husband runs his own business. We have employees to pay, all of that stuff. That's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not that much. So for a bank to flag such a small amount makes you wonder why it was so suspicious to them. What do they know that we don't know? Because $10,000, fine. I understand that. I would get that 100%, $10,000. But, especially working as a CO in a prison in New York, like $5,000 really isn't that much. So why did Chase Bank flag her account as suspicious? What was the reasonings behind that? And the craziest part of all of this is when she was taken in for questioning about the incident with Jeffrey Epstein and him hanging himself in his cell. She was never once asked about the $5,000 that had been deposited into her account. Never once. DOJ did not bring it up once. So you have the $5,000, you see the $5,000 on a bank statement, the bank flags it as suspicious activity, and then after all of this suspicious activity, this bitch runs out and she leases a Range Rover. Okay. If you are making enough money to cash deposit $5,000 into your account and lease a Range Rover as a correctional officer in a prison, I need to be working where you're working. Seriously. Because $5,000 in my bank account and a Range Rover would basically set me up for 5 minutes. I have a bad shopping habit. But, seriously, think about it. How are you affording to lease a Range Rover and just randomly put $5,000 cash in your bank account on a CO salary? I don't even know. Do they salary? Minimum, hourly wage? I don't know what COs make. I don't know how the payment works there, but I can imagine, at least where I'm from, I believe it was like $25 an hour. I made that as a CNA, but I never deposited $5,000 cash into my bank account. The only time I ever got that was tax returns. Thank you. Which brings me to, how did Jeffrey Epstein get all of his money? And I heard Candace Owens talk about this a little bit, and I take everything Candace Owens says with a grain of salt, the biggest grain of salt. And 98% of the shit that she talks about, I don't care to listen to. But she did bring up a good point, and I think that, to me, it seems like Candace Owens is very, she's very, I'm trying to find the word, revenge driven. That's the best I can come up with. Revenge driven. I think that with her, everything going on with the Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk thing, like, for you to come out with a document looking at the wife of a man who was publicly assassinated on live TV and social media, for you to be digging so far into her, and then, oh, well, she's a trafficker. She's part of Epstein. Okay, well, I looked her up. She's not in the files anywhere. Yeah, there is 3 million more files, and maybe she is. Do I think she is? No, I don't. I think that because of what her husband did for a living and because of what they do for a living, she is a huge target. And that's just what I think. And I thought that Candace Owens would be one to advocate for her, but she really hasn't. And so that put a sour taste in my mouth as far as Candace Owens goes. But she has a lot of really good points. She just goes about it the wrong way and looks at those points as some way to twist a narrative for her. But she brought up, nobody can answer where Jeffrey Epstein's money came from. Nobody. It just like overnight he became a billionaire. And I talked about his early life in my first episode of Jeffrey Epstein. And I talked about, you know, he had no education, none whatsoever. And he was a teacher at Dalton all of a sudden. And then he worked in finance and he worked on Wall Street and all of these things. And then it was like overnight, he just, okay, I'm sorry, Jordan Belfort, this is not the freaking Wolf of Wall Street. That's not how this works. Like that's false news. Okay. So your money came from somewhere. Do I think you're a spy? Yes. Yes, I do. I do think you're a spy. I think that's why you're hiding out in Israel. We've seen the pictures, bro. You ain't hiding. Like social media is too advanced for you to hide. It don't work like that anymore. You could not fake your death if you fucking tried. But she talked about like where his money came from and how nobody can answer that question. But if you cheat the government out of $1, she said 8 cents. I'm not going to use her reference because I don't want it to look like I'm copying her, but she had a good point and I'm quoting her on this because she's the one with the point. Say you cheat the government out of $1 on your taxes. You're paying the government $7,000. That's what you owe the government for your taxes. And you pay them $6,999. You cheat them out of that dollar. They will come after you. They know the dollar you cheated them out of. They know everything about you. The IRS knows everything about you. You cheated the government out of $1. $1. They're coming after you. But nobody can answer where this man's money came from. He owned an island. He owned a ranch. He owned several homes in New York, Paris. I mean, all over. Nobody was like, I mean, the IRS digs into $1. You cheat the IRS $1, but the IRS thought it was really, really normal for a man with absolutely no education to just become a billionaire overnight. Look at me. I bought an island. I bought a ranch. I bought a boat. I bought a car. I have all of these beautiful women hanging around me. Like, come on now. Come on now. That's how deep this shit is. And actually, my aunt, the aunt that I have talked about in previous episodes, has said, I'm not paying my fucking taxes. Fuck you guys. Why would I? Nobody's going after anybody in the Epstein files. We've had, several depositions, but no arrests. Not in the US. Other countries, yes, but not here. Prince Andrew. But you don't, there's not, he wasn't in the US and there's nobody, how many people, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Les Wexner, wow. All of these people mentioned in the files, Bill Gates. Putting all of the bullshit as far as children and everything aside, what about that fucking guy? It's very obvious that the pandemic is because of him, COVID. They started all of that and they, everybody's like, it was the Chinese. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit, but Bill Gates fucking funded that shit. My phone's going crazy. On top of, nobody is being held accountable for fucking anything in these files. And that, to me, seems like a pretty good fucking reason to say, you know what? We're over it. We're done. And I really did. I stopped talking about it for a little bit. It gets to be so much for your mind, especially as a young mom, wife. It's so much for your mind to decipher through and to read and to learn about. And I think that everybody should be aware of what's going on and what's happening. But I also think that if you don't have the stomach to read about stuff like this, don't. If you don't have the stomach to even listen about stuff like this, don't, because the mental toll it takes on you is unlike anything I've ever seen. Even my husband was like, he almost was like, okay, you're done. It wasn't until I was like, I think I need to cover another case and kind of give a break as far as the Epstein files go, that he was like, okay, because everybody saw it. Like, as far as like my mental health, depression, anxiety, I was just all over the place. And I had to take a step back because this stuff is gruesome. It is vile. It is heinous. I mean, any word you can think of that just like, there's been very few things in my life. I've gone through a whole bunch in my life, trauma, childhood trauma, whatever. There's been very few things in my life that have actually made my skin crawl and make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Like, very few things. I am very numb to a lot of things that a lot of people aren't numb to. And I thought that going into this, I would be like, this is what happened and this is the story and this is how it goes. But it wasn't until I actually started digging into them and reading them that I was like, I'm physically sick. Like, there are emails and documents in these files that physically made me puke. I've never done that in my life, ever. There's never been one time, not as far as like any horror movie, any episode of Law & Order SVU, or any crime show or documentary or reading a book or anything that has ever taken me to that point until this. It's so crazy that the vile things are publicly displayed out in front of us and not a fucking thing is being done about it. Not one thing. Yeah, we've got depositions, but everybody's lying. Hillary Clinton, I didn't know him. So the pictures of you two standing by each other are photoshopped with the timestamp right in the corner? That's weird. And he was at the White House how many times when your husband was president? And you were just where? What were you doing? Oh, well, I was dealing with 9/11 victims. Yeah, guess what? 9/11 is mentioned in the files as well. So, like, you're tying yourself to these files without even knowing you're tying yourself to these files. And then your husband comes on and, oh, well, we just did charity work. And did you ever get a massage by any underage women? No. Oh, well, what about this picture? And then he looks at it like, and to top off just how disgusting Bill Clinton is, I read a file that Stephen Hawking, everybody knows Stephen Hawking. If you don't know who he is, look him up. Genius. Very smart man. To an extent. I don't believe in a lot of things Stephen Hawking said or did or typed. I mean that respectfully. But did you know that there was a pool where they were at, obviously on the island. They would push him in his wheelchair and just throw him in the pool and laugh. They thought that shit was funny. And like until the point where he had basically drowned. And then they'd pull him out and resuscitate him, give him CPR till he came to. Okay, what happens, hypothetically speaking here, just being the brains of the operation, what happens if y'all can't save him and Stephen Hawking dies? I mean, that's not just something where they're like, oh yeah, throw him in the freaking opening of the floor, feed him to the fish. No, but that's Stephen Hawking, okay? That's not gonna go over lightly. That's just how idiotic these people are. That's how dumb and just no shit's given, no care, no moral compass. It's fucking insane to me. But anyways, so then a bunch of these COs got fired for falsifying the records. The charges were dropped in a plea agreement. And Fox News even reached out to these people for a quote, and they haven't responded. Which, does that surprise anybody? Because it doesn't surprise me. I mean, nobody's going to tell telling themselves, especially if you got paid. You can't. That's what the money was for. Which I am also curious, if the bank flagged the $5,000 as suspicious activity, did she get to keep it? I should look that up. I'm gonna look that up. Did she get to keep it? And I'm just curious, like, is that, I don't know how that works, I guess. I'll have to look it up and just kind of go through it and see how it goes. But the other thing that I want to talk about that I've kind of touched base on, but I also, I'm doing a little bit more of extensive research, and so I do want to talk about it. Has anybody seen the photos of Jeffrey Epstein on the island, and he has that tribal tattoo kind of looking thing on his arm? And then the picture that we got of Jeffrey Epstein after he had quote unquote hung himself, and the tattoo's mysteriously missing. You think that this wasn't all just a big plan? And then, in Israel, there's pictures, and I'm not kidding. I'm not really one for coincidences. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm really not. That looked an awful lot like him. Shave that beard, cut that hair. I'm willing to bet. And why are we not, naturally it's, in your constitutional rights to not give your DNA, but I feel like in this sort of situation, unless you are why not ask him? And like I said, it's within your rights to refuse a DNA test. Clear your name. That's how I always feel about it. I mean, you watch crime shows or documentaries and people are refusing to give their DNA. That'd be the first fucking thing I'd do. Here, take a strand. Take a couple. Swab my mouth. I mean, and if that guy isn't Jeffrey Epstein, why hasn't he come forward and been like, look, the coincidence, yeah, doppelganger, I get it, but I'm not Jeffrey Epstein. No, please do not associate me with that. Where is this man now? Where is he at? And you mean to tell me with all of the news coverage and the media and everything going on that this person hasn't seen their face on social media being accused of being Jeffrey Epstein? First thing I do is want to clear my name. Same with the lady in Canada that looked like Ghislaine. If you're not who we are accusing you of being, why are you not coming forward and talking about it? Because you are who we think you are. You fuckers are alive and doing well, it looks like. But yeah, we're the problem. We're the problem. Just doesn't make any sense to me. And especially with everything else going on, this is one of those do us all a favor moments, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Do us all a favor. Do us all a favor and just do the shit that needs to be done. Start bringing people in. As far as I'm concerned, anybody listed, whether it's incriminating or not, anybody listed in the files needs to be interviewed. Bottom line, Trump included. Take him in, get his side of the story, figure it out, and be done with it. Yes, there have been several people that have exonerated him from the files, including Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand man, Bill Clinton. Blatantly said in his deposition, Trump is not involved. He has no knowledge of Trump being involved. And in the files, it talks about how much Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump hate each other. Hate each other. I mean, but I still think that do your due diligence and talk to him anyway. Satisfy the people. And if you guys have nothing to hide, then there should be absolutely no reason that we don't talk about it. None whatsoever. That's just how I feel about it. Get him in there, do the damn thing, and move on. Move on from it and be done with it. And then you don't have to talk about it anymore. You've done your part. You've done everything you can to help, and you don't have to worry about it. So to tie in also with the children, I never watched SpongeBob. I was not allowed to watch SpongeBob as a child. My mother was super no SpongeBob. She was very against SpongeBob, which I understand because mainly he's fucking annoying. My kids are not allowed to watch SpongeBob either. I think he's terrible. But there is a theory, and if you look at SpongeBob's driver's license, it's on the island. Weird. But there's a theory going around that SpongeBob was made to entertain the children on Jeffrey Epstein's island. So when I tell you that they are throwing it in our faces, I'm not joking. And I'm not saying that lightly either. Like, it's everywhere. It's in our politicians. It's in our brands. It's in our celebrities. And to kind of tie into the celebrities, this actually makes me super sad because I've always considered him one of the good ones. And I firmly believe that he's no longer with us, and that makes me sad, but Jim Carrey. That guy, like, it's almost insulting how terrible these clones look, but we just buy it. Selena Gomez, Jeffrey Epstein. Like, we're just believing all of this stuff. Jim Carrey, like, we just, oh, yeah, maybe, yeah, I think that's him, but maybe he got some work done. He grew his hair out in 3 weeks. He grew his hair out that long? That's wild. And I'm pretty sure he didn't get extensions. So, yeah, they, like, didn't even try. And he has said multiple times, if I ever come out of retirement, it's not me. He has, on national television, called out the Illuminati. He has blatantly said in speeches, a nation that allows people to kidnap children is not a nation at all. I mean, he has been exposing this for decades. Mel Gibson, I've talked about him several times, and I've always been a big Mel Gibson fan. I love Mel Gibson. I mean, one, he's a great actor, but two, he's nice to look at. And they're out here and they're very few and far between, which is the worst part about it, is because the ratio of people advocating for the victims, advocating for the Epstein files, advocating for justice is like 1,000,000 to 1 compared to the people keeping their mouth shut, not saying a fucking word, involved somehow, some way. It's very few and far between. And in the elite, like the billionaires, I have yet to hear from anybody. And the other thing I wanted to kind of bring up is Miss Taylor Swift. Oh, Miss Taylor Swift, in your fucking face about everything as far as politics and LGBTQ and everything that she advocates for. And now all of a sudden we're quiet. Abortion. She came out and was talking about how she was a Christian woman, but she was talking for all Christians when she said that the Christian nationalists are not Christians, and she is not speaking for the Christian nationalists. She's speaking for Christians. Abortion's okay. We support the LGBTQ, all that stuff. Miss in-your-face politics is now all of a sudden silent. Silent. And she has been one who has constantly put her platform to use when it's come to advocating for something she cares about. So now all of a sudden we're not advocating for this anymore. Like, we are all, women's rights. And that's the most shocking thing to me, is women's rights and all of these. You look at the Grammys, you had Billie Eilish, you had Mark Ruffalo or whatever his name is. You had all of these people, Ice Out, fuck ICE, all of these pins on their shirts talking about, human rights. And get ICE out of there and all of the things about ICE. But now, where's your pins for Virginia Giuffre? Where is your pins for Maria Farmer? Where is your pins for the thousands of nameless victims that we will never know because of the horrific things that happened on the island? Where are your pins for that? Why is nobody talking about it? That's my question. It just is, the more you dig into it, the more astonishing it is. And I did take this episode a little lighter than what I would have liked, but after digging into it the first time, after taking a break from it, I really wanted to pace myself because I had been getting into some stuff that I didn't know I needed to be into. And so as far as the files, I'm talking about the files, not trying to mask anything. I'm talking about the files. Like I've been looking at some things that are pretty deep and dark, and I do want to talk about them, but I just wanted to ease myself back into it and just keep, pushing my limits without not pushing my limits. And so that's why this is a little bit more reserved and a little bit more appropriate than what I usually do when it comes to this stuff. I'm just really trying to pace myself the best I can. One, to make sure that no matter what, somebody, somewhere, somehow, some way is talking about what's going on. And I don't think that will ever stop. I know that a lot of it slowed down, but I don't think that anybody will ever actually truly stop talking about it until we get to where we need to be. But also, I just want to make sure that I am my first priority, and my kids are my first priority, and my husband is my first priority when it comes to my podcast and the things that I'm talking about. And I have to be okay with me before I can be okay for anybody else. And so that's my biggest thing, is I need to make sure I'm taking care of me. But I am going to continue to cover this Fridays. Fridays are going to be my Epstein days again. I'm going to continue that. And then I'm going to do what I talked about. And I'm going to kind of have two series going on at once. I'll do my Epstein series, and then I'll do like my serial killer series on a different day of the week. Sundays seemed to work pretty well for me, so maybe I'll do Saturdays or Sundays. We'll see. But that seemed to work best for my schedule, so I will be popping episodes out quite frequently and just making sure that you guys are getting the content that you need and getting the podcasts that you want. I'm also still taking requests. I've had a couple requests, so I'm going to be covering a request on Sunday for a case on John Wayne Gacy, which I've heard about him, but he's pretty fucking crazy. But I'm having so much fun with this, and I'm loving it. And I appreciate all of the love and support I'm getting. It's been so great. I mean, I'm receiving texts and emails and DMs and all sorts of stuff. People just super excited for me, so I love that. But with that, you guys, I am going to log off of here. I have company here, and so I just wanted to do something quick and just kind of dive into a couple things I wanted to talk about. But so I'm going to go hang out with some company for a while. But I will be back on Friday with my John Wayne Gacy case. So I'm pretty excited about that. So thank you guys for joining me on this episode. I'm so incredibly grateful for you guys, and don't forget to stay cautious and caffeinated.